Hello, my name's Ralph Tyrrell. I'm retired from the Essex Chronicle in 1993, having started there as an apprentice in August 1938. Unfortunately for myself, the war was on the horizon, and in 1939 a war broke out, and I was elected to be a roof spotter during the Battle of Britain in 1940. During 1941, the Air Training Corps was formed, and I was one of the first cadets to join 276 Squadron. And I used that organisation as a stepping stone to join the Royal Air Force, where I volunteered for aircrew duties. To cut a long story short, I found myself in Canada under the Pilot Navigator Bomber training scheme, and after a period of intense training I'd done a bomb aiming course, an air gunner's course and a navigator's course, and I graduated and came home from Canada across the Atlantic unescorted on a rather large liner, pre-war days, and eventually landed back in this country, and I got crewed up at 17 OTU at RAF Silverstone, which today is the home of the British Grand Prix. There I joined up with some young members who became a crew first, and ultimately we flew together for about 18 months. We met as strangers, but ultimately we flew as brothers. We had a crew of 6 to begin with, flying Wellington bombers. And then from there on, the pilot was trained to go on to multi-engine planes, and we went to heavy conversion unit at RAF Swinderby, flying short Stirlings. After a short time where we got recommended for sort of a very good exercise, we got mentioned in the training manual, and eventually we were sent to number 5 Lancaster Finishing School at RAF Scireston, and here we picked up at the heavy conversion unit we picked up the 7th member of the crew, which was the flight engineer, because the flight engineer assisted the pilot on takeoff and landing, because there was quite a lot to do. Eventually we were transferred from the Lancaster Finisher School to a squadron, and the bomber squadron we were posted to was number 207 Squadron at RAF Spilsby in Lincolnshire, and here the war was a little bit closer, and on our first operation, I remember it well, it was the Dortmund Ems Canal, and we bombed that, and later on we got to various targets, but we never knew what the target was until the day of briefing for security purposes. You would go to briefing room and there'd be a big curtain across the map of Europe, and when the commanding officer came through, the curtain was drawn and it showed you the route where the bombers would follow there and back. And sometimes we used to be amazed at the length of time we were going to be flying. I suppose the average flying time would be about between 8 to 10 hours. Some of the longest trips was 9 hours 55, I think, in a Lancaster, but thankfully to the ground crew we never had a malfunction, so tribute to the ground crew who worked day and night, and they looked after that plane as much as we did. In fact, I think they owned the plane, same thinking as ourselves, because the plane itself seemed to know its way backwards and forwards to Germany and occupied Europe, so we were very, very lucky. When we took the plane over, it had already been over Germany 70 times, and we said to the skipper, let's see if we can make it to 100. And but fortunately we didn't quite make the 100, because the war finished in April, and it was more or less the frantic days and hectic days and traumatic days were over. But then we were earmarked as one of the senior crews to go into Tiger Force and transferred to 44th Squadron. And eventually we found ourselves at RAF Mildenhall. Here we trained to go and fight the Japanese Navy and Air Force, and got to understand the country of Japan. We weren't very keen about that, but nevertheless that was our duty. But fortunately for us, Japan capitulated after 2 atomic bombs were dropped on them, and we didn't have to go. So in the end, what we did do was take food parcels to Holland, because the Dutch people were starving, and also we used to go backwards and forwards to Italy to pick up troops from either Bari or Pamigliano near Naples, to bring about 25 troops in the Lancaster, and they all line up the fuselage, and I used to go along and tell them where we were, what height we were. We couldn't go too high because we couldn't have oxygen for everybody, so consequently I think the safety height was about 6,000 to 8,000 feet, and the trip was about 7 hours one way and 7.5 hours the other way, depending on the prevailing wind. Eventually, December 1945, we were told the crew was going to be made redundant, and that was one of the saddest times of my life, saying goodbye to a crew that I had flown with for 18 months. We got to know each other pretty well, and we vowed to keep in touch and exchange addresses, and ultimately after the war, Christmas cards were the normal thing to do to keep in touch. And at that time we found ground jobs, and I found myself en route to India on a ground job, and eventually I landed at Karachi. I served in Delhi, Calcutta, where I learnt to drive, and also I went up to the northwest frontier town of Peshawar, which is right on the Afghanistan border. Eventually my time came to be released from the Royal Air Force, and in the end of 1946 I returned to work at the Essex Chronicle. By that time the gentleman in charge was R.J. Thompson, who took over his father's place, because the mayor of Chelmsford, with J.O. Ockford Thompson, was tragically killed during the Battle of Britain when a bomb landed on Brierley Place. Him and his family were wiped out. Nevertheless, he had a soft spot for me, RJ, and eventually in 1950 he made me works manager and asked me to improve the business for the company, and we worked as a team. The staff were very, very good, and we built up the business, and eventually 1964 we were outgrowing the High Street premises. The press was below capacity for what we wanted to do, and also at that time we were taken over by Associated Newspapers, and ultimately I liaised with the local architect, who was Mr. Stanley Bragg, who was asked to design a building at Westway. And that time R.F. Handley was the editor of the Essex Chronicle, and he took me one day to show me the site and said, "It's over to you now, Ralph. Get a factory built and we'll move." So eventually the day came when we did move, and everything went according to plan. Everybody was told what to do, when to do, and it was a very tight schedule, but we never lost production from moving. We never had an accident. The machinery were taken out. In fact, French the builders took some windows out in the High Street premises and had a platform outside where the low loaders took the linotype machines. And in fact, when the linotype machines got up to Westway, the metal pots were still hot, and all the electrician had to do was plug in the electricity, because at pre-arranged points the electrician had worked out where the machine's going to be located, and the building went from High Street to Westway in a very short space of time, and we loved the premises, and the staff got used to new techniques. We're learning to go from letterpress to web offset, and from hot metal to cold metal, photo setting, and of course with the Daily Mail behind us, we had to go on various trips to see new equipment and purchase new equipment, and in the end the chairman, Mr. Frank Ellis, told me to build up the business, and we were printing for lots of other companies, and at one stage I think we were doing about 35 titles a week rather, perhaps 35 titles a month, including their own series of newspapers, which was the Evening Herald at one time when we started an evening paper, and also the Brentwood Gazette and the Essex Chronicle and the News and Herald. Forward Times was another paper, International Freighting, Inside Football, many others, and eventually the time came when I found it was time to retire, and in 1993 I said goodbye to the world of print. And on that particular year, it was a momentous year for my family, because I had been awarded the MBE by Her Majesty the Queen for services rendered to the Air Training Corps. The Essex Chronicle very kindly provided me with a chauffeur-driven car to take me all the way to Buckingham Palace with my family and back again. And when we arrived back at Westway, there was a photo shoot, and I think it appeared on the front page of the Essex Chronicle a week later, all in colour. So that's my life story. Thank you very much.